Howdy, Derek Francis here, reporting in from the outdated cafe during a peak of lunch business. Thought I would pick a nice quiet time to come in and do my presentation on tonight's Capricorn full moon. So the full moon is that's the wrong one. This is for part 2. The full moon, by the way, this is episode 8A. I'm going to do 2 today. One about the full moon and one about the Planet Waves membership drive. So here's part 1. Okay, tonight is the full moon. The full moon means that the moon is on one side of the Earth and the sun is on the other side of the Earth. So there is an opposition between the sun and the moon. When there is a full moon, the moon is always in the sign opposite the sign that the sun is in. Hence, the sun is in Cancer. We've just passed the solstice, and the moon is now in Capricorn, and it is about to, in a few hours at 10:19:34, about to oppose the sun. So there will be a lineup of moon, earth, sun. Here's how this looks in real life. In real life, according to this diagram. Okay, I'm using my handy-dandy archery arrow as a pointer. They have all kinds of fun things here at the outdated cafe, and there is the moon. Can you see it? It looks very moon-like. It's a little gray crescent. And there is, it's a good thing this is a long pointer, and there is the sun. It looks very sun-like. See that? See that? See a little sun? A little moon? Some things in astrology are super-duper intuitive. Okay, and they are exactly opposite each other, and the Earth is there. And this creates tension. It creates the sensation of a wave coming to a crest. It creates the sensation of a face-to-face encounter of some kind. Patrick Walker, one of the people who helped me get into astrology, would describe the full moon as the breaking of a deadlock of some kind. So any situation that has reached a point where there seems to be no further movement possible, if you take the ride on the full moon, it is possible to kind of loosen up that deadlock. Now, what makes this full moon interesting is a few different things. For one thing, it is very close to the summer solstice. Summer solstice in the northern hemisphere, winter solstice in the southern hemisphere. If you happen to be in New Zealand or Australia or South Africa and you're listening, please send me an email. Okay, so this makes it an Aries point event. Even though it's at 10 degrees of the signs Cancer and Capricorn, it is still an Aries point event because it is very close to the first degree of Aries. 9 degrees away is still pretty darn close to that first degree. That means that the whole wave of news that we've been seeing, all of which comes with the theme, the personal is political, that is described by this particular full moon and certain other events of last week, including, for example, the presence of Mars very close to the sun. Now, other planets influence the aspect pattern, and so what we have is, first of all, the moon, as you can see, is very close to Pluto, and that means that the sun is close to being opposite Pluto. The sun is very close to Mars. Mars is opposite Pluto, so we have the full moon with 2 planets involved, Mars and Pluto. In addition, there are points in Aries. There they are. I've drawn them in so I could fit the whole chart onto one palette. So that means that as this full moon comes to a peak, the moon will first make an opposition to Mars, then it will make a conjunction to Pluto, and then the sun will make a conjunction to Mars and an opposition to Pluto, and then all of those are going to tap into Uranus and Eris, which are in the aspect pattern. So this is how we get a more complex reading out of the chart. When there are other planets, which there always are, which modify or expand the conversation. So this enlarges the sensation, and it makes the full moon draw out over about another week to 10 days, that sensation of an opposition. For example, over the next week or two, as Mars comes to full polarity with Pluto, a full opposition, Cancer to Capricorn, that's going to be interesting. That represents movement. It represents a release of an expression of energy. Now, Yeah, so there you go. So we have this natural event. Now, if you're interested in studying astrology, if you want to understand how these things work, if you want to get the feeling of astrology rather than just the theory of astrology from books, what I suggest you do is you study, and by study I mean feel, experience, the full moon, new moon pulse. Every 2 weeks there is a full moon, every other 2 weeks. So every month there's a new moon, every month there's a full moon, and they happen at obviously 2-week intervals. Okay, so if you follow that pulse, you will start to understand astrology, because the thing about astrology is that, and I think the mistake most people make is they try to get it in theory, they try to get this concept of what things are supposed to be, but then the way you really read astrology is by sensation. You read it by a combination of emotion and intuition with maybe 1/4 part intellect involved. So most people go in on the intellectual level, what is this supposed to mean in theory, but then in practice there are other things going on, and you have to have what Barbara Hand-Clown calls aspect sensitivity. That's the thing that is in your body that you can feel the way these planets are mixing, blending, merging, harmonizing, and that gives you a more intuitive sense of what the meaning is, rather than proceeding from theory to reality. It's necessary to start with a real impression of events, and then from there go to theory. All right, now look, this is just too darn long to work with, so let's just use my finger, which is somewhat shorter. Now, there's another aspect pattern that is brewing, and the way this thing looks is, first of all, everyone has been watching the Venus-Jupiter conjunction form. It's been kind of famous. It's one of those moments when the planets finally get into the news, which they've been doing. And this is a beautiful conjunction. It's the first of 3 Venus-Jupiter conjunctions, because Venus retrograde that starts in about 3 weeks. That'll be the subject of a whole Planet Waves TV. Okay, or 2. That is in a trine aspect, fire to fire, with Uranus and Eris, 2 very potent planets, and notice that they are in a conjunction. This is an important conjunction. It's going to last well into 2018. It peaks in 2016 and 2017, and Planet Waves pretty much right now is the only place writing about it. But if you see anyone saying anything about the Uranus-Eris conjunction, please send it to me, and I'm curious what you have to say about it. These are 2 fiery, explosive points, and they are in Eris. They're full of surprises. They are both iconoclastic. They are both somewhat subversive, and it's a very exciting conjunction, especially for Aries, but especially for everyone, because we're all influenced by the sign Aries. Now, one last thing to mention in this chart, and that is the square between Mercury and Chiron. That is exact on Friday, the 3rd, and it happens a couple of times a year, a big aspect like this between Mercury and Chiron. And what this to me looks like is, first of all, the square represents tension. It represents the need to express something. It represents it's somewhat related to an opposition, but the energy is more contained in a square, and with a opposition, the energy is more expressed. And so the square can represent something that you want to express. It can represent a discussion you need to have, or, as I'm seeing this, a decision that you need to make. And so watch that process happening over the weekend. The Venus-Jupiter conjunction is involved. The way you see an aspect pattern is, notice that these have close to the number value of 20, this has close to the number value of 20, and these have close to the number value of 20, and that has close to the number value of 20. All of these things right around 19 to 21 degrees, 22 degrees, are all talking to each other. They're all part of the same pattern. And so by asking that question, by answering the question, by expressing the thing that seems to be caught up in the tension of the Mercury-Chiron square, you will tap into these other aspects. It's like opening up a battery and getting the energy out of the battery. It's like tapping into the flow. And it may be a tense question. It may be a really serious question that you have to ask. It may be just the kind of thing that you think you don't know the answer to, you wish you knew the answer to, you may think that it's too difficult for you to understand. That is a typical condition of Mercury Chiron aspect. So you don't feel up to the task mentally or psychologically. It may trigger some old sense of injury, but then if you press forward, if you bring some courage, and you ask the question, you will tap into a lot of other planetary aspects symbolizing the potential to release all that energy contained in the square, if I'm making myself clear here. Since I'm in the Outdated Cafe, I want to show you one of the kind of things they have. It is this awesome little kind of desk tray. Gabe, where did this tray come from? He doesn't know. It's $31. It's probably about 75 years old. And I have one on my desk where I keep all my art supplies in it, and it's an awesome thing. They have all kinds of groovy old things in this cafe, and in theory, everything is for sale, but that's not really true. The camera currently is set up on some old cream cheese boxes that just the box costs $14. I'm sure that the box and the cream cheese cost about $1 or 50 cents at that time. Okay, so I'll now leave you and conclude part 1 of episode 8 of Planet Waves TV. My name is Eric Francis, reporting from the Outdated Cafe in fabulous Uptown Kingston, home of the Red Goat. Okay, I'm going to push the button. Bye for now.